Well, thank you very much for joining us on a Friday afternoon. We're most delighted to host this joint event between the Stanford Silicon Valley New Japan program and JETRO San Francisco and NEDO Silicon Valley's TIP seminar series. Please let me introduce just our program for a couple minutes. I'm Kenji Kushida. I'm the program leader here. Many of you have come to our previous public forum series. Thank you. And if this is interesting to you, we do have a series of events that we're putting on. This project started last fall, and we're aiming to be a sustainable platform of interaction between Silicon Valley and Japan. We do public forum series, research on how small firms, startups, and large firms can make use of Silicon Valley, how Silicon Valley can best make use of offerings by Japan. So we have public forum series, research, a series of international and cross-university research groups, and we also have policy discussion and policy analysis. So that's what our project is about. And I'd like to say thank you to our project sponsors. At the platinum level, we have NERA, the National Institute for Research Advancement, WIL, the World Innovation Lab, and Komatsu. And at the silver level, we have NEDO, the New Energy and Industrial Technology Development Organization, Omron, Startia, ANA, and Rakuten, and Mitsubishi UFJ Bank. We're still getting permission to use their logo. And we have a couple strategic partners, Industrial Growth Platform, and Ishin, a media company. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Tojo Yoshiaki, who is the head of JETRO San Francisco.
I'm Yoshi Tojo, head of JETRO San Francisco. Today we have a very distinguished series of speakers. The first-hand person of policymakers in regenerative medicine regulation from METI, Director Nishimura, and frontier researcher, Dr. Nishi, talking about the frontier of regenerative medicine research. And Dr. Mori is talking about Japanese new industrial alliance and regenerative medicine with extending hands for cross-Pacific collaboration with the counterpart industry in the United States. And Dr. NEDO's Fogarty Institute is rather inbound seat-taking of in how the Silicon Valley ecosystem is take advantage of various business and technology seeds all over the world, including Japan. And lastly, I'm talking about recouping all the previous speakers and talking about new Japanese regulatory and open innovation systems. And we followed up in a panel discussion. So now, floor is Nishimura about the opening remark.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Tojo-san. I'm very glad to see many people in this seminar today. My name is Hidetaka Nishimura. I'm a Japanese government official, and I'm in charge of promoting bioindustry, including biomedicine, regenerative medicine, and other biotech-related businesses. Again, I'm really excited to be here at Stanford because I lived in Mountain View for 1 year, from 2002 to 2003. Today is the first visit since 2003. It has been more than 10 years. Time flies. My dream of coming back here has now come true. I was a visiting fellow of APAC at that time, so my desk was there, and I working with Kushida-san at the time. It was an amazing experience for me. My stay at Stanford was extremely rewarded, both intellectually and personally. The most rewarding part was I had the opportunity to get to know personally and work with professional Stanford friends here. Today, in this seminar, 4 representatives will present their plan or idea of future collaboration in the field of medical and pharmaceutical industry between the US and Japan. All of them are key persons when considering the collaboration in the field. I believe this session will be a great opportunity for both sides. I hope that we will achieve mutual benefit by strengthening ties between the US and Japan through today's discussion. I would like to mention a little bit about Japan's policy on healthcare field in my remarks. Healthcare industries play pivotal roles in Japanese economy. Health and longevity is put in the first place of the most important fields of Abenomics. So we are enforcing a lot of policies to promote medical and pharmaceutical industries. For example, we established new legal framework for regenerative medicine last November, which revolutionarily changed the condition and situation of regenerative medicine industry in Japan. We are proud that Japan has now become the country which has the most attractive and the most advanced legal framework for regenerative medicine in the world. Especially, many companies all over the world think highly of the expedited approval system for regenerative medicine newly introduced. Japan's new approval system is now at the forefront. To take advantage of this opportunity, some decisive foreign companies have already entered into the promising Japanese market or started collaboration businesses with Japanese companies. Japanese government, JETRO, Tojo-san belong to, and FARM, industry organization for regenerative medicine, Mori-san, number third speaker, Mori-san belong to, welcome American companies or people to Japan, and we will fully support them. Probably Tojo-san and Mori-san may speak details of their support services later, but for example, JETRO will help you establish your company in Japan. JETRO can provide temporary office offered free of charge and provide business information in Japan. FARM recently opened a window for the supporting service to help foreign companies find Japanese partners this April with Japanese government support. We hope foreign companies interested in regenerative medicine and other medical-related businesses in Japan make full use of these services and develop new products in Japan to serve them to patients and customers longing for new technologies around the world. These days, open innovation is an essential strategy for every company to develop new products. I believe that a collaboration potential between the US and Japan still remains huge. So I hope that today's seminar helps to make significant progress on the future and further collaboration between the US and Japan. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Now, floor is Dr. Mori, who is the industrial side of regenerative medicine, and how the Japanese new alliances is working with the global partners and make things happen.
Thank you very much for a kind introduction. My name is Fuyu Mori, representing firm. Later I'm going to touch, but ARMIT is something I'm representing right now. I'm ARMIT Secretary General. That's my title. And my background is I'm a chemical engineer as education, but I started my career in photographic industry, and I'm gradually turning myself into a pharmaceutical area, and the most current experience is in the biopharmaceutical contract manufacturing organization. And now from April on, I'm working for firm. So first of all, before that, what I'm going to talk is about the firm and about the market outlook, which we think in the future. And I'm going to a little bit touch on the regulatory reform in Japan. And also, then I'm going to talk about the our RMIT activity. So, okay, so first of all, let's see. This is right. Okay. Big congrats, Bay Area. You have a terrific team, which has fantastic season. So, congratulations. And let's going back to the main topics. Let's talk about firm. Firm is the association of the companies, which is very eager to develop businesses around regenerative medicine in Japan. Firm members have already expanded into 150 companies, which first started in June 17th, 2011, which is almost exactly 4 years ago. And at that time, a few companies, but now we have counting 150 and still expanding. And the contingency of the our membership is quite diverse. Among 150 companies, regenerative medicine, cell therapy specialists, or even biotech, biopharma specialists, or pharmaceutical companies are just 39. The other elements comes from, for instance, machinery or devices, which is 29, and chemicals or materials, 40, and even from the logistics, insurance, and the consulting, etc. That comes up the 42. This diverse nature of this association is quite meaningful because we think regenerative medicine, industrialization of it, or commercialization, if you will, is requiring various functions in each step of the value chain, and almost all those elements are very vital. So therefore, not only the pharmaceutical expertise, but also some other aspects. For instance, the analysis. For instance, how you transport your very important cells from one place to the other. Those elements are very vital. So therefore, this diverse nature of this association is very meaningful. So now we are in a very good situation. We are in a very good position to kind of start incubate business there in Japan. And why firm formed? Because we thought starting businesses in relation with the regenerative medicine requires, means a lot of challenge, because it requires the very much amount of the fund and also time and human resource, etc. So therefore, first trial of the commercialization will require quite a huge asset. So therefore, we need to first get together and collaborate and share the burden and try against those challenging elements to establish commercialization. So we think first collaboration, then let's compete. That's the philosophy. And recently, good news is that firm established the good relationship alliance with the ARM, which is the American counterpart of firm, and we can start collaborating each other. We will soon start some mutual partnering workshop, etc. So firm is definitely starting to internationalize itself right now. So as I said, firms first and foremost purpose is to industrialization or commercialization, if you will. What it means is fostering regenerative medicine industry. That means bringing up to profitable and self-sustaining and available to many those who suffer from the incurable diseases, lifelong ailment, or painful treatment for it. So that's the ultimate goal of ourselves. And let's talk about the outlook of the regenerative medicine as a business. And this is the data, or let's say forecast, or maybe prophecy from the METI. We expect regenerative medicine business will expand as much as $25 billion in 2050 in Japan itself. And global, it will be $380 billion, which is very promising. Which is very huge opportunity for us. But as you may see, let's see, we are just right here. We don't know whether we will be able to steeply expand our business, as this graph shows. But in order to, so therefore, kick starting here is very important. So therefore, we are focusing on the industrialization. I mean, starting the initiative, make initiative in the industrialization is very important here. Whether we successfully expand that or not is up to us right now here. And not only the regenerative medicine industry as itself, but also surrounding industry is, supporting cast also very important here. And also we can expect that those area expands as rapidly as well if regenerative medicine starts expanding as we expect. For instance, in Japan alone, 2050, we expect 13 billion, almost the third of the total regenerative medicine. and global 2050, $150 billion. That's the expectation right now we have. Let's see. So in order to make a good kickstart, we have to tackle a lot of challenges. There are many facets of the challenges. One of the big issue is the regulatory framework, which Nishimura-san already touched. Japan make a very innovative reform in the regulatory framework, which I'm going to explain a little bit. The important point is twofold. One is we define regenerative medicine as a single category separate from the pharmaceuticals and medical devices. Before, we don't have a category of the regenerative medicine. So therefore, it has to be categorized either pharmaceuticals or medical devices, which is very different in the nature. So therefore, approval process is quite cumbersome. So that's one big point for this reform. Categorize regenerative medicine as a separate category. That's very important point. Here, those slides are not important for those who you, not in the Japanese domestic situation. So I'm going to skip this. And point number two is that this conditional term-limited authorization, which Nishimura-san already touched in the inaugural speech. After clinical trials of the phase 1-2 equivalent, where you have to establish safety, that's for sure. But for the efficacy part, you just show some indication of that. That would be good enough to get into the conditional term-limited authorization. Why? Because regenerative medicine is very dependent on the various factors. For instance, the from patient to patient situation is very different. Cell to cell, vitality different, and therapy to therapy, nature is very different, and stage to stage where the patient is. So various elements contribute to the outcome. So therefore, you cannot make a case without huge number of the trials. So that is almost impossible. So therefore, efficacy part later. If you establish safety, you can go into at least temporary into the market. So you start gathering data in the market, and after 7 years, the longest period, 7 years, you establish or fail to establish the case, then you then be able to authorize or revocated. So that's the final decision. So that's the scheme here. So that's the quite revolutionary, the word Nishimura-san used. So those 2 points are very important for the current recent reform of the Japanese regulatory framework. Categorization of the regenerative medicine as a separated area field, and number 2, conditional term limited authorization. Those two elements are very important factors. And this is not so important. So there, among the various factors for commercialization of the regenerative medicine, technology, as Nakauchi Sensei explained to you, there are a lot of progressive studies there. And in Japan, regulatory elements, reform is there and quite ready for regenerative medicine to start up. But, so the further elements, what we need is the social economy and actually the commercialization of the business itself. So there are several still gaps to fill, but we have to make a good bridge study and study bridge with the hopefully with the fast lane, and for that, firm is there, and those diverse. Again, I want to emphasize the diverse nature of the firm. We have a lot of elements there in the firm to help each other and help others to bring in the seeds there in Japan to make the successful business. Here are the some names of the company which you cannot see, but probably, this is just the impression, and you can see some familiar logos there. Some of the major contributor in the firm organization. And recently, now I'm gonna shift this topic towards the somewhat of the my direct contribution. ARMIT. Recently, firm launched the new task force, which is called here Regenerative Medicine Industrialization Task Force. So we abbreviated it to ARMIT. That's what we are. What do we do? This ARMIT started on April 1st this year, so just 2.5 months old. 2.5 months old. Just started. And what we do is try to attract seeds or business ideas or pipelines from domestic, overseas, everywhere to Japan to start kicking up the business there. So in order to make it happen, we thought we need to start some supporting function, because in Japan everything must be done in the Japanese language, which is very challenging for foreigners. So therefore, we accept a lot of we accept whatever the requests or inquiries from the various entities of the overseas people, whoever it is, and we respond to that inquiries and also simultaneously discuss within our committee, ARMIT committee, and firm membership, and hopefully eventually make a partnering between who are very eager to start business there in Japan and the firm members to start a good collaboration there. That's the scheme we are trying to do. And so for the more detail, I brought a flyer, and only a few left because I was in the Bio International in Philadelphia. So after that, I just left up with the 15 of them. But if you anybody who are interested in in this RMIT activity, please feel free to pick up one here. I'm going to put that flyer on the desk. And even if you can't pick up the this flyer, you just visit us in the internet, and these are the URL you have to reach, and also give us the mail. Whatever the request or inquiry is, we try our best to respond your necessity. And visiting our homepage, you can punch in firm RMIT in Google search. Then you would reach successfully to our homepage, which is not very fancy because we just started. But we are now working on the new homepage system, homepage scheme, and which will come probably August or September. But anyhow, please visit us in the homepage. If you punch in just RMIT, you would reach some university in Australia. So don't forget firm, put in first in the RMIT. Thank you. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your.
You've heard from Nakauchi-san, we have Japan has a seat and ongoing research activities. And now you've heard from Mori-san, Japan as industry is opening up to the foreign partners to work with. So we have enough said from the Japanese side. Now we turn the table to the US side, what the Silicon Valley ecosystem can offer, and how that is a benefit for overseas seeds or even including US technology seeds in more on a medical device side. So Fogarty from Fogarty Institution, or Dr. Nid.
My name is Mike Needles. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Fogarty Institute down the road here in Mountain View, California. Thank you, Tojo-san and APARC, for inviting me to this conference. As has been described with regenerative medicine, it seems there's a lot of innovation going on, certainly in Japan, a lot of structures, processes being put in place to attract people and to teach really the world how to do things. As Tojo-san just mentioned, there's an interesting complementarity on the medical device side with Silicon Valley. I think it is the United States, the #1 medical device innovation center, and so there's innovation and lessons to be taught here. And so I'll be talking about that. So the title of my talk, Fogarty Institute as a means to harness the Silicon Valley ecosystem, and by harness I mean to make use of the Silicon Valley ecosystem to learn and to access innovation and business opportunities. I have to admit that I was inspired for that title by the Stanford Silicon Valley New Japan Project website, where it says in there, a key challenge is not simply to duplicate the ecosystem, but to figure out how large firms, various sorts of startups can harness the Silicon Valley ecosystem. I read that and I thought, wow, I think the Fogarty Institute sort of does that. So this might be an appropriate topic for this conference. So how does it do that? Well, one way to think about it, okay, what is Silicon Valley about? Silicon Valley, arguably the ultimate innovation ecosystem on the planet. We know where we are, we're about here, between San Francisco and San Jose. The key ingredients that make Silicon Valley work, one is a lot of very smart people. We're fortunate around here to have Stanford, where we are, and then Berkeley and UCSF and other universities around here to constantly pump out well-qualified persons. This area has 2 of the 5 best med schools in the United States. Highest per capita of patents and PhDs in the nation come from here. Not only smart people here, but people come from around the world. For example, Japan, to share in the opportunities here. The other thing Silicon Valley has going for it is a lot of money. The largest venture capital community in the world exists here. More than 300 firms. 40% of U.S. venture investments flow through Silicon Valley. Finally, what's developed over the past few decades here is this what I call an innovation infrastructure, a vast tool chest of resources for innovators to utilize as they take their ideas forward. Certainly in the IT realm, there's more than 5,000 IT, internet, wireless companies that we know and love, Facebook, Google, etc. And then in the life science area, there's more than 1,400 of these companies, from biotech, medical instrumentation, medical devices, all here in Silicon Valley. As I said, this is the ultimate innovation ecosystem, but still, medical device innovators here, it's still hard. It's hard to innovate. It's hard to take that idea to commercialize it. So given that it's so hard, that's really why the Fogarty Institute, located in the middle of all this, it was formed to make it easier, even for these people. But we have expanded that in the time we've been operating to help our international, or certainly around the country and around the world, international partners. One way to think about how we do that, the Fogarty Institute, at its essence, is an incubator. So we bring in innovators with their ideas. These various resources that are available around Silicon Valley, around the world, instead of them being from academia, doctors, investors, industry, instead of them being in the 400 square miles of Silicon Valley, we bring them all into the 20,000 square feet of the Fogarty Institute, where it just drives interactions, it drives learning. By bringing these groups together, innovation is learned by doing. You learn it by doing it. Relationships are formed, business opportunities that benefit patients are created. You know, speaking of, as an organization that supports medical device innovation and being on the Stanford campus, it's probably useful to, oh, sorry, I skipped a slide. Let me take a step back to say, let me give you another overview of the Fogarty Institute. The Fogarty Institute, importantly, in the United States, it's a 501c3 educational nonprofit. That means it exists not to maximize shareholder value, but instead it exists to provide public benefit. Our public benefit mission then is education. And by using education, we support innovations that benefit patients, and also we educate innovators so they can get that first innovation done and then go on in their careers to make many more innovations. We have 2 main types of students, as it were, at the Fogarty Institute. One is I'll call seed stage companies or early stage startup companies. And the other type of student are broadly called innovation partners. These are larger sponsoring organizations. I'll touch on each of these in my discussion here. First, starting with the seed stage companies. Our program, in summary, shown here, we look around the world. We accept applications from around the world via an online application process. We put them through a rigorous selection process, bring them in. These are early stage companies that, without the Fogarty Institute, they very well may die. The company might die, so their important technology would never get to patients, and those patients would never benefit. We surround them with resources so they can succeed. Mentors. We're located on a hospital campus, El Camino Hospital, down the road here, so they get clinical input. That Silicon Valley access that I alluded to, where we have a vast network, obviously, within Silicon Valley, they have access to that. For certain companies that need it, we provide a little bit of funding, and then we we provide workspace. Now describing this now, then our support of early stage companies, being on the Stanford campus, as I was saying, another organization that supports early stage innovation here at Stanford is Stanford Biodesign. I assume many of you are familiar with that. It's a Professor Paul Yock's program. It's useful to understand the differences and the complementarity between these two programs, and we are actually great partners and friends of this program. Stanford Biodesign program here is an educational activity taking place here at Stanford that happens in a pro-business environment. On the other hand, the Fogarty Institute is what happens there are business activities taking place in an educational environment. So they're complementary. At Stanford Biodesign, you're on a university, you're doing an academic exercise. You're doing innovation training by going out and into Stanford Hospital and looking for clinical needs, doing ideation, and doing early strategy development. This is an academic exercise that is effective for learning. At the Fogarty Institute, it's not an academic exercise. When you have an idea that really has some, looks like credibility as a real technology that can help people, and you want to form a company, that's what you do. You form a company. You create a real business plan. You do your clinical testing. You get funding. You get people's money to go forward. So you can see the difference here. The linkage between these two programs at Stanford Biodesign, in talking to their fellows and their leaders, about 1 in 10 of these ideas that the students come up with to use as their learning vehicle, 1 in 10 of those ideas really has promise that it could be a real product. Those promising products, when they show an early proof of concept, they'll apply, and we're very often will admit them to the Fogarty Institute where they can take their idea forward, taking it forward to be commercialized and then benefit patients. This is a real paradigm that exists, a real pathway that exists. I can tell you that at any given time, between 20 and 40% of the companies in residence at the Fogarty Institute are from Stanford Biodesign. That makes the point that really this pathway of academia, smart people with ideas, Stanford Biodesign, learn more about innovation and do some very early testing of your idea, and then Fogarty Institute, when it looks like it has promise, to really get it going as a company, and then finally launching it as a product. This pathway is a model that works, at least here, and so it's worth understanding that model with the potential to replicate it. So then, those are the differences between those two organizations. Now, the Fogarty Institute, what it provides to these early stage companies, is shown on this slide. There's really 4 things. One is mentors and relationships, as I mentioned. The mentors, the noteworthy thing is it's not simply a seminar once a month that we provide. We have on-staff mentors who are former Silicon Valley CEOs, for example, who work side by side with our companies, helping them to move forward. We also have on-staff physicians, like Dr. Fogarty, who provide ongoing physician mentoring to these companies. That's invaluable. Relationships, large corporations visit the Institute, certainly. Governmental organizations, members of academia, certainly visiting physicians come here. So there's constant relationship building and networking opportunities for our companies. As I mentioned, we are located on a hospital, El Camino Hospital. This is the largest independent community hospital in the San Francisco Bay Area. That's noteworthy because they don't treat, unlike Stanford Hospital, they don't do a lot of exotic, esoteric kind of disease treatment. They do the common diseases, the diseases that, unfortunately, many of us are going to get. And so they're experts at that, and that just happens to be, of course, the area. If you're going to develop a medical device as a product, you want to be in that. You want to be around the experts there. So it's a great partnership we have with El Camino. By being on the campus, we can pull together groups of physicians that will talk to our companies many times a month, several times a week if needed. This is almost unheard of if you're in a medical device company off in a warehouse somewhere. Or in Japan, we've heard it's quite difficult to talk to doctors often. The other thing we provide is workspace. This is a real incubator. It's not a virtual incubator. It's not a website, as some incubators are. both laboratory space and office space. The key thing here is that we have, at any time, between, say, 8 and 14 companies in residence. This is really a quasi-academic environment where these innovators are constantly learning from each other. They, of course, don't share their ideas about their products, but they share their ideas about process, how to make a startup go. Finally, the other thing we provide is funding. We're a nonprofit, so we don't have a lot of money, but for those companies that really need it, who have nothing, maybe we'll give them $50,000, maybe $100,000. But really, the important thing we do is we provide a connection to the Sandhill venture capitalists, the various angels around here. It's noteworthy that I took some statistics last year. The average company, in about a year they'd been at the Fogarty Institute, had raised $750,000, and 90% of that money was not from the Institute. So the Institute draws in investors because of the credibility it provides and the network it provides. So our current company is in residence. I'll just show the logos very quickly. For time, I'm not going to go through the various technologies, but just to make the point, we're incubating a range of technologies. Certainly we have a cardiovascular company, because Dr. Fogarty is a pioneer in that field with CyberHeart, but we branched out. We have EchoPixel is a surgical planning tool. It's actually a three-dimensional halogram of a patient's organs. Vita Systems is an educational technology. It's going to replace textbooks. It's a website with an avatar, and it uses gaming technology. In the neuromuscular oncology space, we have Zebra Medical Technologies, which is a microscope on the tip of the needle to provide subcellular resolution of tissue. In the GI space, we have GTech. GTech provides a non-invasive way to understand functionally what's the matter with your tummy. Which part of your tummy is not working right, so a doctor can prescribe the right drug. Right now they can't do that. And then interestingly, in the maternal and infant care space, we have 5 companies right now. Envision is for early detection of ovarian cancer. Gantia is for understanding hot flashes in females. Impress is for the number one cause of maternal death in the world, postpartum hemorrhage. Materna is to prevent permanent muscular damage that occurs to women upon childbirth. And Medical Q is a way to help clinicians in a delivery room follow the neonatal resuscitation protocol. And so they don't have to use their head. They can use an assist in that very high-stress environment if a baby's not breathing. This makes an important point here. This grouping of companies, we did not try to pick these companies. But what happened is the applications we got, because we receive applications, we got many in this field because it illustrated how underserved an area it is. It's underserved because VCs, angels, typical angels, it's too risky. This is scary stuff. Moms and babies in the United States equals lawsuits. So you stay away from it. Us as a nonprofit, we embraced this. We took on the challenge to take these companies, push them forward, de-risk them enough so the standard investors will not be scared and take them forward. So those are the companies we have now. To the end of the pathway that I showed before was companies graduate from the Institute where they can sell their products, get them to patients so patients can benefit. So I'm going to list here the 5 graduates we've had to date. The name of the company, the A round, that's a typical way you graduate. You get your first funding, say from venture capitalists. And then the therapeutic area. The 5 companies are shown here. HeartFlow did their A round, the sizable amount of money they need to be a real company. In 2011, this is non-invasive detection of coronary stenosis. PQ Bypass got $14 million in 2012. This is a minimally invasive approach to femoral artery bypass. Niveus Medical got $2 million in 2012. This is to prevent muscular atrophy, particularly the elderly patients in an intensive care unit. Prescient Surgical, 2014, recently they did about a $4 million A round. This is prevention of surgical infections. And Intervene, this year, they got about a $6 million A round. This is a cure for venous dysfunction, those big ulcers people can get around their ankles and whatnot, as all our veins inevitably go bad. So the technologies, the products from these companies are going to help millions and millions of people. So this is this is our public benefit. And it's notable, for, again, Stanford Biodesign, these three companies, Niveus, Prescient, Intervene, these all came out of Stanford Biodesign. HeartFlow actually is from a former professor at Stanford, so there is definitely the Stanford connection. Now the second thing I wanted to mention was, besides our students being seed stage companies, also our students are innovation partners. An innovation partner is a corporation, a government entity, or academia, some large sponsoring organization that sponsors some individuals either to be incubated at the institute, a technology incubation, or to learn about innovation, learn by doing, at the institute. I'm going to show up here 4 types of opportunities or programs for these innovation partners. The first is education. Education in Silicon Valley medical innovation. Again, the Fogarty Institute is all about learning by doing. We do not have a textbook. We don't have a classroom. We have startups that are trying as hard as they can to survive. People can learn from that. So what we do, for example, with Terumo, we created a program where their highly qualified R&D engineers will go into one of our startups for 3 months to live that experience, to understand how that's different from being in their R&D shop near Tokyo. Mitsubishi is still at the Fogarty Institute. We have created a fellowship program for them to understand hospital operations. Most recently, FDA, we created a fellowship program for them to understand how fragile medical device startups are, so to help them understand to perhaps modify their policies. That'll be an interesting one. Incubation, this is the other way we help our partners. They incubate actual technology projects. This is driven, the value here of this program is that innovative technologies can often be crushed in a highly bureaucratic environment, but at the Fogarty Institute they flourish, surrounded by all the mentoring resources, surrounded by 10 other startups. They flourish there. They are not crushed. They're welcomed. And here, both Terumo and Hoagie Medical have incubated and are incubating concepts at the Institute. Another opportunity for innovation partners is access to the Silicon Valley ecosystem. As I said early on, the Fogarty Institute is really becoming a convening point for all members of that ecosystem. So partners are there to interact with that. Mitsubishi, the ASO group with ASO Izuku Hospital, and also BioInnovate Ireland, which is a university innovation operation in Ireland based on biodesign. And finally, what the Fogarty Institute provides is connections with quality early-stage innovation. Those companies we select are pretty good, like I showed in those earlier slides. So for some partners, Mitsubishi, for example, who likes to do distribution arrangements, and Johnson & Johnson, which is of course a big player in the space, they like to interact with our companies for those business opportunities they represent. So it of course it's noteworthy that a large number of these partners are Japanese organizations. We certainly note that, and I think that illustrates that there are special connections, special opportunities for Japanese organizations. This is driven by the reality of this situation in Japan that exists now, is being described for the medical device industry. There's a strong commitment to build a greater culture of innovation in Japan. To do this, Silicon Valley can provide important lessons, of course, and those lessons can help create perhaps a new Japanese medtech innovation ecosystem. The Fogarty Institute, by what we've done, it may be that the Institute can help address these two goals. The first goal, the Fogarty Institute is really a microcosm of the Silicon Valley ecosystem. As I say, it brings all those pieces together in one small organization, so it's an easy way to access the learnings, the teachings, and the network of Silicon Valley. So the Fogarty Institute is a great place to learn and connect with Silicon Valley, addressing that bullet point. And secondly, that medical innovation pathway that I described before, academia, an organization like BioDesign, where you can start to flesh out your medical device idea. A place like the Institute that provides a comfortable, fostering, supportive landing pad or nest for a new company, particularly for academics who don't know how to start a company, really. And then finally launching that to patients as a product. That model, that could form the seed for a new ecosystem if placed somewhere else in the country or the world, and obviously Japan seems like an opportunity. To suffice it to say that it's been an honor and a privilege to work with our partners from Japan. We look forward to working with them and others going forward to help meet these goals. Thanks a lot.
Lastly, I'll go for quickly my presentation in the last 10 minutes. I'm Yoshi Tojo, JETRO San Francisco NEDO, and working for the technology and business brokerage of Cross Pacific. And today I'm talking about the MedTech. And the nice introduction of previous three speakers. I think we are now living in a very exciting era. The stem cells, as Nakauchi Sensei has presented, opening up various exotic new therapeutics in the field. And from IT side, we're living in a big data, artificial intelligence, and cognitive computing, which already have an effect on bioinformatics and biomedical area as well. And also the minuscule manipulation of nanoscale things, as well as the device miniaturization, is also with the new material science open the new domain in biomedical devices. So yes, we have a technological frontiers open to us, and how to bring those potential to real practice and real industry, real innovation is a challenge for we are living in a supportive domain of researchers and industries. And as Nishimura-san and Mori-san as introduced, one of the answer of Japanese government, especially in regenerative medicine, is this legal framework change. And as Mori-san said, it has shortcutted phase 3 clinical trials, so that it shortened the clinical trial period to the go to the market, and also cut the cost probably 1 digit and lower. But at the same time, it has enough precaution for revoking if something wrong is happening on those. And that already drive not only the shorten the going market period, but also attract the potential seeds in regenerative medicine go to the market and go to practice. So I think the one quick low-hanging fruit is the just hustling the pipeline of clinical trials, but also it is a wake-up call for technology holders like Nakauchi Sensei or other industrial side together and explore what can be done to take advantage of this new legal framework. And it already happens in the various industry alliances. And we still see the PMDA, it is a FDA counterpart in Japan, is now gearing up their reviewers number. Well, 10 years ago, it is only 250, but now they have equipped and at 750, and soon, in 3 years, it will go up to the 1,000. So now, not only the regulatory framework, but their own operational side, they try to catch up with those new legal framework. So, and also as for the seed creation side, Japan has created the newly funding agency. So it is all three rated agency, one on the science side, industrial side, and the healthcare side, jointly generated, called an AMED, a newly agency for medical research and development, and that supposed to work as a more strategic portfolio building of Japanese research. That means generate more promising technological seeds in a systemic manner. And it's not only benefited to Japan, but also benefit for foreign partners, which partnering with those seed technology holders. And one more thing I would like to add upon the recent AMED activity is so-called accompanying consulting services. That is the probably similar to what the Mike NEDOs told us. The academic world and the industrial world or practical world is so not divided, separated, and you have to some agent to bridging those two worlds, and you have to talk with the academic researchers in the business and bring them to in the business terms and how they interpret it into actual business model creation or therapeutic creations. And this service is newly created service in AMED. Actually, it is transplanted, inherited from METI to AMED. Is kind of consulting service which on demand. So if you have a seeds and have a new business ideas and to try to make your medical devices into the market, and then you call AMED offices, and they assign some consultants who knows the medical device space and networking, and they are matchmaking with the clinical trial or CMOs or CROs and all those ancillary services, and do accelerate the process for those technologies to the market. And that is Japan, but it also is a benefit to United States players, since well, it is very difficult to directly contact it and to curate tech search in academic world. But we have arms of those accompanying consultants, and which is orchestrated by AMED, and also JETRO and my office NEDO is also the part of the supportive institutions. So if you knock the door of those supporting agency, then you probably supposed to be more quicker to reach out to the appropriate partner or technology you are looking for. So various local government is also gearing up their effort to make artificial clustering of biomedical field. For biomedical field, there's two emerging or established clusters, one in Tokyo area and other in Kansai. And Kansai, you know, the Kyoto University and Riken in Kobe, and Osaka University is in cardiovascular cell therapy. Those are the early adapter of regenerative therapeutics in going to the practice. In Tokyo area, there's Tokyo University's Nakao-sensei group, or Keio University's or Kano-sensei group. There's various advanced Cs are now heading toward getting to the approval of the practice. And those in Kawasaki, the firms and other regenerative medicines groups are now preparing to formulate one of the center of clinical research activities, and which, along with the Kansai biomedical cluster, is one of the two distinctive hotspots of Japan in regenerative medicines. So, and those and guidelines, I would like to touch upon lastly about the new initiative of JETRO San Francisco to facilitate to reaching out and those partners in cross Pacific. This is still in the primordial stage, and we're working with the various potential partners, including Fogarty Institute. It is a kind of bi-directional platform. If you are the US players who penetrate into Japanese market or take advantage of new regulatory framework in Japan, then knock the door of this platform. Then we have an early access to the farm counterpart, or some core hospitals in Japan, which I put in a National Cardiovascular Center in Osaka. It is one of the 10 top clinical core hospitals, and they tried building a kind of Fogarty-like complex of the hospitals and incubation center and various industries in the vicinity. So we are now partnering with those key players in Japan. And so you have a much quicker access to those testbed or the partners through those. And if necessary, we are talking with the various venture capital and accelerator in Japan. So if things goes well, then you might not only to get a partner, but also the financial package to have your program or project move faster in Japanese soil. And I also would like to be other way around, bringing Japanese seed technology, especially in medical devices, and take advantage of Fogarty or those U.S. innovation ecosystems. I'm now we are now still an early stage of talking with our partners, but if things goes well, then Japanese partners like Fogarty Institute doing those corporate partners or early entrepreneurs take advantage of this platform and to much easier access to the top-notch incubator in the United States. So if you are interested in those platform activities, either in the hosting side or sending or developing your own business and crop specific, please contact us in JETRO San Francisco, and we are happy to work with you and to building and modifying still and primordial this platform to articulate into a best sub for your business. Thank you very much.
Government introduced a faster approval system. Your question is public insurance. If a company get the conditional approval, that product will be covered by public insurance. So in Japan, every people must join in the public system, public insurance system. So it's very important for promoting regenerative medicine.
Yeah, just a couple of comments, additional comments. Well, yeah, Japan has 100% coverage public insurance policies. So, and it's very difficult for the non-insured products to penetrate in the market and FT junk, since there is a regulation that it is very difficult to mixture the coverage therapeutics and non-covered therapeutics. So sometimes due to the fiscal reasons, those insurance policy coverage is slow to cover the advanced medicines, and that is some problematic. But what Nishimura-san says is for the regenerative medicine is concerned, it is expedited in semi-automatic coverage.
I know you know about as much as I do, Jack. University of Tokyo with a biodesign program over there. I think that was announced a month ago or so.
Yes,
Prime Minister Abe was here.
Yeah.
So that's very exciting. It's obviously it's an exciting development. I mean, it's just amazing the commitment that University of Tokyo, and I'm sure there's a lot of government support and encouragement going to them to do something that people would think would be outlandish, create a medtech innovation ecosystem around in Tokyo. That's fantastic. I think biodesign is certainly a key piece. Shows Sure. I think that'd be awesome to have the Fogarty Institute there too to keep that thing moving along.
What do you think of the new regulatory framework that's been, Japan's new regulatory framework that's been mentioned here? And second one is to Mike. So what are some of the strengths that the Japanese firms that you've worked with have brought, and what are some of the major challenges that other firms should know about in entering something like a mini Silicon Valley ecosystem of the kind that you run?
Experience being in Japan and dealing with bureaucrats, they're not always very straight. So even if the system is changed, if the people don't change, I think at some point we encounter a similar, same problem. So I'm carefully watching it.
The Japanese students, as it were, who come to the institute, the difficulties they encounter, I would probably say that both the difficulties and the strengths, not surprisingly, perhaps are cultural. The difficulties, one is, one that they have while they're in Japan is connecting with physicians. That's something they're used to, just operating as an engineer or a technical person without that clinical input. So the very wonderful thing to see happen when they come here, or before they just have to work in their engineering world, is how they very quickly establish relationships with physicians at El Camino Hospital. As I was saying, they can meet these people multiple times per week, and how that is a new world, a new realization. And so that's a wonderful thing to see. The other probably difficult thing that I see is that in Japan, and this is just my view, there are sometimes difficulties in stopping a project, in that stopping it can be seen as a failure, perhaps. But as Dr. Fogarty says, failure is a prelude to success. I mean, everybody around this valley who started a company or anything, for that company that hit it, they all failed, gosh, I don't know how many times. 10 times. Failure is a prelude to success. That's a difficult thing to learn. It takes time. It helps significantly being around all these other, bona fide Silicon Valley startups where, they know they're going to fail. Hopefully the whole company won't fail, but they go down a path, that fails, you got to retool, go a different way. The really wonderful thing I see in the Japanese students, as it were, who come over, is the passion, the commitment to get the job done. I mean, that is just amazing. And so taking that passion and adjusting it in some of the ways I've described, getting the right input, learning how to use that passion in the most productive ways, wonderful things will happen. I can tell you that 3 companies, they didn't exit with an A round. There was, the technology didn't look right, so let's cut it. Hey, you guys, you learned something, go on to your next thing. So that's 5 out of 8. That's 60 whatever %. It's okay. Way better than a lot of guys down the road here. The other comment I was going to make on pushing things out to Japan. One tricky thing, I know there's a lot of work going on in the regulatory environment in Japan, as you've heard, particularly in regenerative medicine. Historically, the Japanese regulatory system, I believe, was not kind of like the U.S. regulatory system has been, not really as supportive as it could be. So our medical device companies have not, that would not be the first place they go for a clinical evaluation necessarily. They'd be like everybody else where they go to Czechoslovakia or Mexico. But we obviously, because of relationships we have built, for example, with Aso Izuka Hospital I mentioned, we'd love to have a clinical evaluation there go on. We look forward to that day.
Well, the difficulty to run a clinical trial in Japan is not necessarily in the PMDA's sole fault. It's more recruiting the test bed in the clinical trials. well, as far as the PMDA is concerned, as I said, they are gearing up and increasing their reviewers, and the month period of actually sit in the PMDA is comparable to FDA right now. So, well, yeah, there is a diversity. So, I'd not say that the PMDA is the first-ranked, first-rate business, but still, it is catching up and doing comparable things. But this supporting mechanism, like the test bed, then number of the test bed or patients to participating in the clinical trials, or in the medical devices distribution channel is not necessarily as open as you see in the United States, and those practice it's not the regulation side, more in practice in the customs in Japan is sometimes a difficulty in for the new technology to penetrate in Japan, and that's is what we're trying to get down. And Nishimura-san and his colleagues working with the Ministry of Health try to change mindset. But as Nagase said, we need eyeballs and we need encouragement of United States and Japan, and to move things forward.
So on that forward-looking note, thank you very much. Please join us in thanking the panel.